Today, it's about Telogen Effluvium, unmasking androgenetic alopecia, understanding the connection between hair shedding and genetic thinning. With that and more here, guys, at the Hair Wire. And welcome, guys. Welcome to another episode of the Hair Wire, the place, my friends, where you get hair smart. I'm your host, Sergio Cardona, alongside with Sam Dips and Carrie Jared. Hey, guys, how you doing?
All good, all good. I just choked right now with my own saliva.
Don't things happen. I mean, it's live, so yes.
Yes.
Carrie, how's the cold over there in Canada?
Oh, it's cold. It's a weird kind of cold. It's a bitter cold this year. So, but it's we're still able to do stuff. My son went on a school ski trip and they said they were still good to go. But we'll see. I'll hear all about it, I'm sure. But it is cold. You go touch your door handle and you like burn your fingers. It's weird.
That's something weird, to hear. Skiing school trip. That's something that culturally I can never relate.
No,
I can never relate to that.
Yeah, he was ready to go.
Crazy.
His helmet, his snow pants all at the front door, and they have they're called tucks. There's these little chemical things that you shake, you put in the pocket of your mitt to warm up. So he had all those ready to go, and yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Devices to keep you warm.
Well, here my temperature today is 75.
Trade you.
It's nice.
Yep.
That's nice.
Very nice. Very nice.
Very nice. I mean, we're hot, but that's nice.
I have my little fireplace going on right here, to keep me warm. I am so cold right now.
Oh goodness.
That's crazy. Hey guys, hope you guys are tuning in and watching this show because what's happening here is going to be amazing. Today, again, we're going to be talking about this combination of Telogen Effluvium unmasking or masking androgenetic alopecia, and basically this connection, between what's shedding, what's thinning. Is it miniaturizing? Is it just thinning? What's the deal here with either one condition and the other, and how to properly manage, and what to expect, because I'm seeing a lot of this situation right now, and the problem is with expectations, and unfortunately we have talked about this gazillion times. People expect miracles out of products, and you need a treatment, not a product. And although a product is a part of a treatment, it's not a complete treatment. And that's the difference here. And so I want to start with you, Carrie, in your experience, because you see people, come behind the chair, and they say, well, I'm losing hair. Maybe it's genetic. And you realize, well, maybe it's Telogen Effluvium. Maybe it's both. What do you say? Because, people, they rapidly say, well, cut my hair off. I need to, get my shedding under control. What are some of the things that you see, and what do you say to people when they come to your chair?
I first don't jump to conclusions. Oftentimes
That's
they right
first.
away think the worst, and a lot of times it is not the worst. And I say, well, let's actually investigate this before we do more damage or provoke anything else. But honestly, sometimes it is just as simple as a regular Telogen Effluvium episode. So let's ask the questions.
Yeah, definitely. How about you, Biz? Now that you're back in the clinic, I mean, you were doing very well, doing your own thing, but now that you're in the clinic again, in the clinic environment, what do you say to the people, when they're confused about experiencing androgenetic alopecia, Telogen Effluvium, maybe it's both. what do we say to people like that?
So usually, like I would say 50% of the population has some genetic predisposition for androgenetic alopecia, right? Usually, and as we said, androgenetic alopecia could be hereditary or it could be non-hereditary. So you could have your parents having androgenetic alopecia. That doesn't, not 100% means you're going to have it, but and vice versa is true. But also, even if your parents don't have it, you may develop androgenetic alopecia just because your genetic makeup developed at some point the gene for genetic, the androgen gene basically for genetic alopecia. So I would say, just to wrap it up, 50% of the population have a predisposition for androgenetic alopecia. However, we don't want to be scared because it's genetic factor, because as we know, and Carrie will explain that a little bit more than me, epigenetics is actually more powerful these days than the science of epigenetic is more powerful than the gene itself. Now, with epigenetics or lifestyle factors, as the functional medicine community will call it, you can actually turn on or off these genes. So even though you do have the androgenetic alopecia gene, that doesn't mean 100% you're going to get it. First, that's number one. Number two, if you actually take care of yourself properly, means your lifestyle factors. What does that mean? Your diet, your sleep, your stress level, your how do you say that in a way that if your energy, how what you put out in this world, if you are 100% sure you're going to get androgenetic alopecia, you know what, you're going to get it because you're 100% sure. You're talking to your neurons, you're telling your neurons, go to wake up this gene and tell it to work on me because I do have it. So in a way that education, knowing yourself, knowing your weak points. Everybody has we have all our weak points, knowing them and manage them. I'm not saying it's easy. Sometimes we fail, sometimes we get up. But if we know who we are, what our genetic makeup is, and we don't have to do a genetic testing to know our genetic makeup. Just look at your family history. You will know what you may be predisposed to. And listen to your body. I was talking to Sergio about that before the show. Everybody knows their limits. Their limits. We know our strength and we know our weaknesses. And when we surrender to our to these thoughts in our heads, to our intuition, we can actually, I don't know, like I'm going into intuition today much more, but believe me, I believe that if you know exactly what you're looking for, you can heal yourself. Now we're talking about androgenetic alopecia part. When we talk about telogen effluvium part, actually it's way easier than androgenetic alopecia, because telogen effluvium, once you know the trigger, you can actually stop it or decrease it. But when both together happen, most likely they will happen. Actually, I have 2 clients right now going on with androgenetic alopecia and scarring alopecia at the same time. And this is really a bad combination. It's just, we know when we understand our bodies and androgenetic alopecia, we know that it's going to take more time for us to bring it back to life. You know, when you understand this idea, everything else will fall in place.
Yeah.
Definitely. Now, what are some of the symptoms that we relate usually with androgenetic alopecia versus telogen effluvium? Because people need to understand the difference between one and the other. What is the composition usually that you seek for people with androgenetic alopecia? Open question.
The composition you said?
Yeah. Well, what are the characteristics? What are the symptoms? What am I looking at for people with androgenetic alopecia?
Do you want me to go, Carrie? I have just one simple sentence to say. Androgenetic alopecia is a very, very, very slow hair loss. You can't even sometimes notice it. Telogen effluvium is super, super quick hair loss. You will definitely notice.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. Typically with TE, it's coming out in clumps. It comes out quite fast and in a shorter period of time. With the AGA, it's over a longer period of time. It's not, it doesn't come out in clumps like that. So, and then also too, I examine the follicle, the root, to see. And usually with the telogen effluvium, there's the little white bulb. So if a lot of them are coming out in handfuls and I see the little, majority of them have that little white bulb, then I'm like, yeah, this is more Telogen Effluvium than AGA. So
Definitely. Now, other things that we can also see, and that a lot of people basically get scared of, is the pattern, because usually for females, particularly, you start seeing the hair lines going a bit wider and more sparse, scarce type of hair, and we see the pardoning in the middle right going wider. And a lot of females, particularly, they start thinking about, well, is it androgenetic alopecia? Because look at the parts, look at how much less hair I have today. I have I have lost too much hair. Um, is this androgenetic alopecia? Even though they understand that they're having large clumps of hair, that usually relates to maybe telogen effluvium, but it's general public. I'm not do not know the difference. And the first thing they do is they grab a bottle of minoxidil.
Let
You
me
know,
let me show let me tell you
yeah.
a visual, a very nice visual. Actually, I noticed that earlier last week. When it is androgenetic alopecia, this part is wider, right? Right?
Hmm.
That's the characteristic of under. When if
Yeah.
it's TE, the part is not wider, but you can see through it.
Yeah.
See, it's just like a small visual. So it looks
Exactly.
wide. So if you are like on light, it looks wider, but it is not wider. It's just the whole, like till here. This till here will be. You can see through my scalp till here and here. So if the lights hit it, you will think it's a wide part. But if you come closer, it's not a wide part. It's this
Exactly.
area very very thin. That's TE,
Yes.
not androgenetic alopecia.
I
mhm.
mean that's one of the many clues that you can get in the process to actually discern, to differentiate one to the other. But definitely the pattern is one of those things. The other thing that we're looking at is family history. Do we have actually family history? Because I mean it's genetic, although. And later on, Kerry will be talking about epigenetics because we have the epigenetic factors in that also can kick in and create a type of androgenetic alopecia. But other than genetics, other than patterns, we also want to identify whether we are actually experiencing miniaturization or not of the follicles. Now, there are a couple of ways that we can actually learn whether we are experiencing miniaturization of the follicles or not. Some experts that like to use a scope, right, to measure the thickness of the hair. So once the caliber of the hair goes very thin, usually they like to say that it is a miniaturized hair. While others, they like to do biopsy punch to determine whether miniaturization is actually happening, which I have my reserves on that subject. And finally, we have the polarized microscopy trichogram, in which you can actually measure the length of the follicle. And for me, is the best reading, more accurate in terms of determining whether someone is actually experiencing androgenetic alopecia or not. But as we are uncovering, people with Telogen effluvium, and then they have the pattern, they have the family history, and they're wondering whether they're actually experiencing both or maybe just one of two. And I was mentioning, the quick reaction is to start using minoxidil, start using maybe finasteride, spironolactone, dutasteride, all of these drugs that they work wonderfully for people who do actually have androgenetic alopecia. But note that these are not the only options for androgenetic alopecia.
That's
So
correct.
I want to put that out there to the general public, because you need to understand, guys, that desperation would only get you to one place, and that is despair, and that is frustration, because you're gonna start doing things that you do not need to do, and maybe you're gonna be extending the process of hair shedding, because for some people when they start using minoxidil, what do they expect? What's happening? They get a dread shedding afterwards. because that's one of the many symptoms that people may experience when they start using minoxidil. So, you know, how can we balance this process? And of course, we know that people we need to educate. We need people need to be educated, and of course, they need a proper professional by their side uh, to walk this process. What can we say about this? Carrie's all you if you
Yeah.
want to jump in.
Well, yeah, you need. I don't know how to answer that one, but yes, you want to make sure you talk to somebody who knows what to look for and what to
Exactly.
see, and you don't want to put everything in the pot and first off waste money, waste time, and also too you could also do the reverse effect as well and trigger something else to happen.
Right.
So that's always my concern. Like if you're treating something that you don't have, you can also trigger it too. So you want to make sure you know what you're walking into and have confirmation and you know
You know what? Someone told me this last week. Maybe if you start using minoxidil and if it doesn't work, then you do not have androgenetic alopecia.
Why you want to
I
go
was
through
like,
this? Why you want to put yourself through this? Yes.
no, that's the thing. Why put yourself through it? And the other thing is, um, if and then you have to consider what minoxidil is. If you use minoxidil and your culprit was related to poor blood circulation, it's gonna work for you. It's not gonna determine that you had androgenetic alopecia. It's just that you had poor circulation, and minoxidil help you. So
Yes.
some people say, "Oh, I started using minoxidil, started using spironolactone for my Telogen Effluvium, and it worked for me." Well, it worked for you. And first of all, placebo effect sometimes, but secondly, some of the other benefits of the drug may be addressing some of the other culprits that you have, but it's only going to work temporarily because it's not meant for Telogen Effluvium. So you see this with a lot of doctors because they like to grab, if it's just for a wisp of whatever shred of hope that it might help, they start using it. But you want to use a drug like that for someone who actually do need it, and not for someone you're just experimenting with to
Mm.
see what goes on, and,
Yeah,
and, and it's frustrating.
yeah, like
Go ahead.
I was telling you, Sergio, before the show, I had a person who went to a dermatologist. With all due respect to all of them,
Our respects, yes.
she has scarring alopecia, and they put her on dutasteride. I was
I
like,
mean, if you have scarring alopecias, definitely you want to try something to help you with your autoimmune response
yeah,
rather than to use a
what
DHT blocker
dutasteride
because
has to do? Yeah, I know. I know. But in any case, just to put it back into perspective, even if you have androgenetic alopecia or telogen effluvium, really, you, first of all, as Sergio was saying, you need a professional to determine which one you have, because the treatment plan will differ depending on your diagnosis or assessment, let's say. So you really, really need to do your own research, go to a really good trichologist, so they can tell you with a scope analysis or whatever, or the microscope, the advanced microscope, that polarized microscope that Sergio has. I don't have. I'm trying to. One day I'll have it to
very soon.
assess exactly what do you have, androgenetic alopecia or telogen effluvium. I love it. Oh my God. One day, one day. That's one of my dreams. One day.
Yeah, we'll be there. We'll be there.
Well, yeah, one day. Um, that is the external protocol, right? So when you go to a trichologist, they will exactly tell you externally what you need to do for androgenetic alopecia versus telogen effluvium. But one thing that everybody is missing, or the dermatologists are missing, if you don't start from inside your body, nothing is gonna work. If you
Thank
don't
you.
if you don't work on your health problems, on your sleep, on your hormonal balance, Believe me, even if you have androgenetic alopecia, it doesn't really matter. If you're not healthy, your body will not recover your hair, period, regardless of your diagnosis. And to recover your hair, I am not taking that. I'm not saying that when you go to your blood work and your doctor says all good. All good means you're not sick today. That's what all
Thank
good means.
you. Thank you. Amen. Amen.
When they tell you all your blood work is normal, means you're not in the hospital today, which is like, duh, I know that because I'm not sick today. But it's not gonna show the biomarkers for the trends of your biomarker, where you're heading if you keep doing what you're doing right now. That is number one miss. Number two miss is the ratio, the data, the lab work, that ranges, basically the ranges. I said that before, and I want to emphasize on it again. The Western medicine lab ranges is so wide. It is actually the average of the American population, and the American population is not healthy.
Yeah.
Is not. So
Amen.
if your vitamin D is 30, means you're not sick, but that does not mean that it's good for you. You
Or
have
that
to
you're
have,
healthy.
or you're healthy. No, if your
Yeah.
blood vitamin D is 30, you need to make it at least 50 if you don't have hair loss. If you have hair loss, it has to be 70 for the trichologist to reverse your hair loss. See, they're different. Doesn't matter you have androgenetic alopecia or TE, it really doesn't matter, or even scarring alopecia, it doesn't matter. If your vitamin D is less than 70, your trichologist cannot help you. That's why we have to start internally, address the nutrient deficiencies, the root causes, the hormonal, whatever it is, plus the proper diagnosis, so we can do the proper treatment plan externally. Both together will solve the hair loss problem. Yes,
Definitely.
yes, yes, yes.
Sorry.
Oh, wait. Now, Carrie, I want to ask you, what are some of the things that our folks should be looking out when they're experiencing, for instance, Telogen Effluvium? What are some of the main culprits along with Telogen Effluvium?
Yeah, main culprits is usually stress. And stress, when people examine stress, it's not just, oh, I'm not stressed. There's actually contributors of stress. And epigenetically, we look at, sorry, I'm just turning my phone off here. You want to look at so people, when they think of stress, they're just like, oh, I'm happy, I'm not stressed. Sometimes you don't know you're stressed because you've been living in such chronic stress that you don't know anymore, that your body has to adapt and to adjust. And that's the dangerous stress that we need to watch for. Now, in epigenetics, we also examine the 4 areas of contributing stress, and those categories also have subcategories underneath them. The main 4 factors of stress contributors I look at is intake stress, so anything your body absorbs and consumes, like medicine, food, dietary, all that. The second one is physical stress, so how you carry your body, or if you've been into an accident, that all affects each other. Then the next one is environmental stress. So environmental stress is how you respond to your environment and things that happen to you. And then the next one is trauma or residual stress where you are questioning integrity, or questioning ethics, values, or maybe there's trauma that you haven't addressed. And so once you figure out where that contributor is, you can really figure out when it happens. And usually telogen effluvium happens within usually about, you'll start to see it starts to show up within 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes 3 to 5 weeks of when the trigger happened. And typically, when I'm asking somebody with telogen effluvium, I'll ask them, what happened to you? Or what did you change? Or what was out of routine? And I'll ask those questions, those probing questions, and I'll say, what happened within the last 3 to 5 weeks? Or within those window frames. So usually I like to start within 2 weeks. And if we still can't get there, then I go to the 3 to 5 week and find out what the trigger is. So it could be change of routine. It could have been moved. It could have gone on a holiday. It could have been a breakup, change a new job, new diet, new medication. And usually that will be the tall tale that is what triggered the telogen effluvium episode.
I like what you just mentioned, because, for instance, myself, I sent my labs to Viz last week because I've been feeling stressed out, and I've been feeling drenched and low energy, and you know, I thought it was just stress, but it happens that I was low on B12, you know,
Yes. Like one
and
simple
once I
thing.
started the B12, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can breathe again. It's something else. Basically, what you were saying.
Yeah, I was saying that even like the simplest thing, B12, is like a simplest thing, right? But we forgot that our body is a process, is a chemical reaction. And there's a process, right? One reaction goes like one equation. Remember in chemistry, one thing goes to other one thing. It's a chain of reactions. And
Yeah.
if there is, and along this chain of reaction is one enzyme is missing, or one nutrient is missing, all this reaction is going to be like a domino effect. It will start crippling, and you will feel that you're stressed out only because you have a vitamin B12 deficiency. That doesn't make sense logically, but actually that makes sense in a chemical level, a chemical reaction level of your body. And that's why people really underestimates the importance of nutrient deficiencies. If you have a vitamin D deficiency, for example, and I love vitamin D example because it has a lot to do with a lot of things. If you have vitamin D deficiency, you will have bone problems after 50, and all with it, it's just a vitamin D problem. You see what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
And
I'll
that's
also,
intake stress. Like that is an intake
right,
stress factor.
right. And some people's like it's just, and then some people also, and it bothers me a lot when I go to a doctor and I ask him, "Can you please test vitamin D?" He's like, "Why?" I was like, "Why?" Because I
What do you
am
mean?
I'm a woman.
Why?
I'm a woman in my 40s. I'm coming into my menopause. If my vitamin D is less than 70, it's going to affect my bone health. They don't know that. It's like, oh, but your insurance is not going to cover it because you don't have a reason. So you want me to wait until I have a bone problem so you can, it's too late. I have a bone problem, osteoporosis. That's doesn't make sense to me. And one more thing also that doesn't make at all sense when doctors put clients on, or like patients, sorry, when they put their patients on, if they have high blood pressure, let us say, they put their patients on a zero salt diet, right? When you see high blood pressure patient, what they always say, I can't eat salt, zero salt. Okay, listen to this chemical reaction. If you do not have salt in your diet, means salt, the table salt, the salt we eat is NaCl, sodium chloride, Na plus and chloride Cl minus. If you do not have Cl minus in your body, and Cl minus you cannot get it from anywhere else. You can go to a chlorine pool, that's the Cl2, that's the whole molecule of chlorine that your body cannot break. That's why it has to come from the salt, Cl minus. If you don't have Cl minus, your stomach cannot bind H plus with Cl minus to produce stomach acidity. If you don't have stomach acidity, you can't digest your food. You can't digest your food, you cannot absorb nutrients. You don't absorb nutrients, you're going to be having a whole lot of problems. So
Not to
people
mention
who
that
are with no salt
if you don't
diet,
have if you don't have salts, how are you gonna retain water?
thank you. So people with, especially like, oh, I have a lot of elderly friends, like their mothers and mother-in-law. Oh, my mother-in-law is on a zero salt diet, and she has problem over problem over problem. Where, and she can't eat. Okay, why can't she eat? Because when she eats, she feels so heavy. She doesn't have HCl in her stomach. How she's gonna process her food? And high blood pressure is not a salt problem, by the way. It has nothing to do with your salt intake. I am fierce today.
Wait.
Go get him! Go get him! Guys, you're hearing it first here. You hear it here, the hair wire. So we want you, to first of all understand, be aware of the things that are going outside. Understand first of all that medicine is reactive, never preventative. Unfortunately, that's the way it works. So if you want to have preventative medicine, you have to go to a naturopath. You have to go to a functional medicine expert. You have to go to holistic practitioners, people who are using science to help determine, the small pieces of changes that you need to make in your life in order to achieve wellness. And believe me, we talk about wellness here a lot in the show, and the reason for it because it goes hand in hand with hair.
Right.
If your wellness is out of whack, your hair is going to be out of whack, and you're going to be experiencing Telogen Effluvium. And we see a lot of people go from one episode of Telogen Effluvium to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. And what happens over the years? They have uncontrolled shedding, they have uncontrolled hair loss, and they cannot get that hair back. And they're fighting because they want to get the hair thick again. They want to regain that hair. And for some reason, they feel stuck, that they're unable to move. Well, the reason might be because you're not absorbing nutrient properly. Maybe you're not doing exercise. Maybe you are not drinking enough water. Maybe it's all of the above. This is why nurturing our body and making sure that our bodies are well enough to produce hair, then that's where you're going to see some changes. That's why, you see Bisan talking about, having those optimal levels of vitamin D. And you were saying, Biz, 70 is, like the benchmark for healthy hair growth. I was hearing a doctor and an oncologist say that there's no such thing as toxicity on vitamin D. I was like, this guy's crazy. And he was saying, how he has pure people using 20 milligrams, not micrograms, not 20,000 units, 20 milligrams of vitamin D. I was in shock. But is this even true? No, the thing is that, this guy was saying how the measurements of vitamin D came to be. And if the studies were wrong, the parameters that we're using are wrong. And he believes that we should have higher vitamin D standards. And, to me, it will make a whole lot of sense. And again, this is just one voice.
Yes.
And I'm only showing to you what I read. I'm not saying that that's true. But if the science that we have today is not, following a rigorous standard and revising the data, for instance, we know ourselves that today we see a lot of doctors saying that the catechin phase is shorter than the telogen phase. And we know better. We know that it's the other way around. We know that the catechin phase is longer and the telogen phase is actually shorter, quicker. So, we see doctors of, very high up in the food chain still saying something that is the old from the 1950s, and they have not revised the data. So we're still doing medicine out of information that is not relevant today, that needs to be updated.
Yes.
And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in, guys.
Yeah, and I want to reiterate to you guys. I want to reiterate to you, or I always tell my clients this is general practice saved my life when I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. And a lot of that is your basic information. But then when you have those that specialize in study and go deeper, you moved into specialized medicine. And that's where you do the research. And that specialized medicine helps you figure out why and what's happening or what that specific issue is. Then you have functional medicine. And functional medicine is where they get to the root of the problem and solve and resolve, like figuring out where it stemmed from and then how to resolve it from there. There's a place for all. And it's just an understanding that, where each will sit. And you could go to general practice all the time for all these issues, yes, but you want to go to the specialized for the research and for the moving forward in that specific topic, because you can't know everything.
Right.
You can't. And then the functional medicine is knowing that there's a beyond as well, just medicine. It's beyond that. So I need to help us reiterate that to people.
You're right.
Yeah.
And functional medicine is a preventative too. So also it's really good to look at the biomarkers in your blood work, with the trends of it, where it's going. So for example, your DHEA was low and then it's getting lower and lower and lower. So you want to understand what's happening, why it's getting lower and lower by time. DHEA is one of the hormones that's inside our body that if your cortisol is very high, it keeps decreasing and decreasing. And as we said to our points before, sometimes we are under stress, the cortisol level is very high, but we actually can't notice it because it's so chronic, we already get used to it. I have a lot of clients that for them bloating is a very normal sensation because they're always bloated. So sometimes we also get used to the sensations of being depressed, used to the sensation of being bloated, and so on. So we don't question these things anymore, and then we wonder why we're losing our hair. So we have also to look at the trends of your blood work. Remember, when is the last time you felt so healthy? How does that look like? Like, what was it when you were like in college? How do you wake up? You wake up like, wow.
I mean, it's been so long. I can't even remember.
I know. Now at 40, I was like, it's in the morning already.
Oh my.
Can I add to that too? I want to add to this because we were talking earlier about epigenetics, and as you know, epigenetics, it's a very big thing to my heart, and self-awareness. And you were talking about it being intuitive, and I always encourage people, especially my clients, is to be observant, know their body, like, like nobody knows your body better than you do. And so if you know something's not right, dig for it, look for it, listen to those cues, observe those cravings, observe that intuitive push. And the more self-aware you are, the more intuitive you'll be about your body. The whole mind, body, spirit is connected. And that's, it's not about having intuitions, but in being intuitive to your own body and listening and being very self-aware.
Very true.
Yeah.
Definitely. Guys, we have to wrap it up. God bless you all. We'll see you next week. I hope you enjoyed this show. Please write your comments. You have your questions. And we'll see you next week. To then. Ta-ta.